evening, ladies and gentlemen. Myself and Harley are back to do a question and answer video. It is the day after the Crawley game, which we're both feeling a bit blur after. Harley, how are you?
I'm not too bad. I'm not feeling that great after that game. You're not feeling that great at all?
No, and it was before the game as well. I'd like to point out it's not COVID, as several tests have said. But yes, I apologise if I start coughing. Hopefully you won't catch anything through a laptop screen.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we're both a bit dour after last night's performance. It wasn't great, and I believe we'll get onto it in the questions. But we're going to kick straight off into the questions because there's something that me and Harley would like to discuss. The question came in from a Swift's eye view that I mean, we'll take the compliment. It says, now, please don't take this the wrong way, but I noticed you're both a bit posh. Just thought it'd be interesting to hear a little bit about when and why the hell you both support Walsall. Ties to the area, what made you fall in love with the club, and also loving your work. So thank you very much, Swift's eye view. Harley, how did you get involved with the club? I think I know from our comments section in other videos, but I'd like to hear your take on it.
Yeah, it's been much discussed in comment sections, the ambiguity of how I became a Warsaw fan. So finally, I'll reveal all.
Oh, it's a big moment.
So there's a little bit of a story to it. So growing up, I absolutely loved football, but my parents weren't football fans, so I never really had a club growing up.
So
I mean, I kind of...
you didn't support a team growing up?
I flirted with a few clubs. You know, I liked Manchester United for the football they played at the time. You know, you had Scholesy and Rudy. I went to a Wolves game once and just didn't like the atmosphere at all. I was just like, this is horrendous. I mean, it didn't help they lost 2-1 to Sheffield Wednesday, but, you know, still wasn't, didn't like it at all. And then about 4, maybe 5 years ago, one of my close friends, he took me to a Warsaw game.
You can name him.
It was Alex.
It was Alex.
I'm sure he'll make himself known in the comments section. It was Alex. And it was Shrewsbury away, and we lost 2-0. And even though we lost 2-0, it was a miserable day. It was wet and it was cold. I just kind of fell in love with the club, the fans, everything around it was just brilliant. And I went to loads of games the rest of that season. And I just kind of fell for the kind of family atmosphere that the club had. It felt so close. You know, you can go meet the players in the car park and talk to any fan and they'll just have a chat with you. And I felt like I belonged as a Warsaw fan.
So whereabouts do you reside then? Are you based in Walsall?
I'm not based in Walsall. So I see what you're alluding to here is because I told Rob before we started recording that I'm originally from Wolverhampton. Exactly. I don't live there anymore, so don't worry. I'm up near Stoke now.
Oh, that's much better.
I mean, it's a nicer bit of Stoke, but you know, yeah.
Well, so many of you know, I live in London. I've lived in London for the last 10 years, which is why my accent is very diluted, which is, I believe, what Swift's eye view was potentially alluding to. My story is slightly different. My dad used to be a West Brom season ticket holder. However, he took me for my first game to Walsall because he'd gone to Walsall quite a lot. It was basically his second team and wanted to take me to my local team. We live in Walsall. Growing up as a kid, I always sort of supported Walsall because that's where I was from. He took me. It was against Stockport County. We won 1-0, and I thought, this is the life. And it's been slowly downhill since then. And I think I can't remember, it wasn't my second game, but I remember an incredible game to watch was Walsall Crystal Palace. And that's when I learned what it was really like to be a Walsall fan, because we were 3-1 up with about 10 minutes to go and we lost 4-3. And I remember my dad turning around and saying, this is what it's like. But, 10 years on, and I think the old saying goes, you can take the boy out of Walsall. You can't take Walsall out of the boy. So, yeah, that is my background. And no matter what, no matter where, I will always love Walsall. And I've lived abroad and supported them abroad. It's just something that I'll never be able to not do. And it is painful.
It is painful. It's kind of that pleasure painfulness, because we all hate it, but we love it as well. It's such a love-hate relationship. But we'd be nowhere without our football team.
No, it'd be so boring supporting like obviously living down here, I've got friends who are Spurs fans, Chelsea fans, Arsenal fans, and they're always moaning. And I'm like, what are you moaning at? Like, what do you possibly have to moan about?
Yeah.
Anyway, talking of moaning, let's get on with the rest of the questions.
Let's do it.
I feel we're going to have one of those videos. We're going to tackle a couple of these sort of together. I think we're going to generally be on the same theme a bit tonight. So Philip Hill and George ask two questions that, although they're not the same, are fairly similar. So Philip Hill has asked, why can't we play 4-4-2 in matches? And George has said, why do we look so devoid of any creativity? How can this be rectified? Well, where do we begin?
I mean, I'll tackle the formation. I think that's purely down to the fact that Matt Taylor, up until kind of quite recently, believed in his 4-2-3-1 wholly, and he didn't really have a reason not to, because it started getting results. He's kind of started to experiment just a little bit the last couple of games, and he's looking for something. But I think absolutely the solution at the moment, from my eyes and a lot of other people's, is put another striker up with Miller, because we've seen that the defenders on the opposition teams have started to double up on Miller.
Yeah.
So when we're playing that ball over the top, instead of having one centre-half to deal with, which he can, there's now two, which he can't deal with, because it's always going to be the other one's going to clatter him and take him out the game. And it happens every single time. If we could put Wilco or Phillips up top with him, that's another outlet. That's somewhere for him to knock the ball down to. It's someone to knock the ball down to him. It's something a bit different.
I thought last night, so he played more of a 4-3-3. So it was less of a 4-2-3-1 sort of formation, more 4-3-3. And I thought to begin with, actually, that it, and for most of the first half, Walsall were in control. But the tactic was clearly hit Wilkinson, let the runners push up. Absolutely fine. Except for we stopped doing that very kind of quickly, or we didn't do it enough. And that was clearly the tactic. It's clearly what Taylor wanted, because we were doing it from the off. And I don't know why we don't persist with things like that. We created not loads of chances, but it's a different system. And I think you've got to commit to it. Taylor's obviously trying to rectify it. And a 4-3-3 may be the way to go. It may not be. It might be 4-4-2. But if we're playing with a striker that is, Wilkinson drops deep and can then feed other players, you've got to commit to that for the 90 minutes. Okay, there's going to be times where you do play it long or try and go down the wing and get a cross in. You're obviously not going to get the same attack all game. But you've got to commit to what the tactic is. And I feel that the players aren't doing that enough. And I don't know whether that's a management thing or whether it's the players not responding on the pitch. But for me, there was a clear tactic last night, and then it just got dropped. And that sort of touches on George's point about why we look so devoid of any creativity. Is I personally feel that we don't stick to a game plan well enough.
Yeah. One thing I've kind of been thinking about as you were talking is our starting position too deep? Because in that 4-2-3-1, it's a very compact formation. And what I mean by that is you've got a double pivot, you've got two kind of holding midfielders, you've got a left and right mid that are quite deep already. So the starting position is very deep. And I get where he's going with that. He's trying to be compact in defence and then transition the attack kind of smoothly from defence to attack and hit them on the counter. But I think we're starting too deep because when we are countering, it's only Miller in the attack. The wingers and even someone like Osadebe, whoever is at Cam at the time, they're too deep. They're all too far back. If maybe Taylor should look at the 4-3-3 is better in that respect because the players play higher up the pitch, but maybe the starting position of where the players are needs to be adjusted by 5 yards or something, just so that we can spring forward quicker.
He did an interesting thing with having Earring seems to be playing quite deep on the ball, and everyone seems to be playing quite deep, and I just. Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're trying to move the ball forward from such a deep position that, defence is just going to stick 11 men behind the ball and make it difficult. The other thing that I feel needs to happen is I think that Otis Khan should be playing more, and I think that's
I agree with that.
A common thing amongst the fans at the moment. Which
I really like him at fullback. I think he does a really good job because he does come out of position a lot, but I really like that he pushes the game forward. He pushes us up the field because he runs from defence.
I mean, in the first half yesterday, a lot of the time when we had space, Ward doesn't bomb on. Obviously, he's like 36, 37, but I feel that maybe having Khan in that role would push someone forward to support Kiernan or whoever's playing on the left wing. But then again, Khan looks good wherever he plays, and I feel that he can be shoehorned in, and Taylor has to make a decision now where he's going to play him and actually commit to it for a couple of matches.
Yeah, I think if we don't starting him, what was the point in signing him? Because he's a fairly high profile player, kind of, for us to sign as a free agent. There's a reason he brought him in, and it's to make an impact. He needs to start getting the chances to make that impact. Now, I think personally, like you say, we need to kind of bring Ward out the team, move White over to left back, because I thought he was all right there against Cambridge. I think it was, wasn't it?
Khan left or right-footed.
White.
Because I think he can play both. Which I'd be inclined to put Khan at left back.
See, I thought White was good at left back and Khan was good at right back against Cambridge. I thought there was no issue there. I mean, Khan gave away the goal, the first one, the pull back pass. But apart from that, they were both good. And I think that's how. I think Khan's best on the right, and I think White can play on the left. He probably prefers the right, but he can play on the left. But I think it's more a case of Khan is better on the right, and that's where I prefer him to be. But I think the combination of those two bombing forward.
Yeah. Would you not want Khan in a number 10 role?
I think right now we don't need him in a number 10 role. I feel like we need him in a defensive role. I know he can do a 10 role. I know he can play on the wing and he can play a lot of different positions. But I personally think his biggest impact would be at fullback because we're very weak at fullback. And I think, especially with Rory Holden coming back, I think he's going to be fighting for game time to get into that number 10 spot when he could quite easily just drop into fullback and get starting games.
Right, moving on. We've got a few questions that have got multiple kind of parts to them. I'm going to touch on something that's not on the playing side of things. From Neil B, why can't prices be reduced for midweek home games? 32 quid for myself and son last night is hardly encouraging support on a Tuesday fixture. I feel the club would like to, because midweek fixtures, especially as it gets colder, drop. But I don't know whether that would impact prices of season tickets. If you start offering reduced Tuesday fixture prices, how that would affect. But for me, potentially offering link-up offers, so kind of getting a slightly reduced rate for going to 2 or more midweek fixtures would be a way to go, rather than just an isolated price drop.
I think as fans, we always want something a little bit cheaper. We want a better offer for the football on show. And when there was the fans forum, I did bring this up to Pomlet, and I did kind of raise the question, why aren't there more promotions? And they kind of gave the same old answer. Oh, it's something we're looking into. We're trying to kind of see what we can do. What it comes down to, really, from what Pomlet said and reading between the lines, financially, it's very beneficial to have the prices structured as they are now, and the club needs that revenue. And as much as we'd like to have a discount,
It's not,
I don't think that the club really can accommodate that, because they need as much money as they can get. You know, there is lower attendances, but if we're not going to get that many more people if we bring down the prices by a fiver. It's just not going to happen.
I think for me, the biggest thing that drives attendances is performance.
Yeah, if we'd gone unbeaten last month, this wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah,
I think
1 win in 7. You're not. I mean, Port Vale was Port Vale, but you know, that was highly attended because of the fixture, not because of the form. And I think at the moment, we're now in a 3rd season in League 2 where mid-table seems like what it's going to be.
Mhm.
That's going to play its part in attendances, and unfortunately, that, like you said, I don't think by kind of doing a £3 drop in price midweek is going to affect ticket sales as much. However, I do agree with Neil, and I think that, you know, last night the team needed a lift, but because they've been playing poorly, it shouldn't be on the fans to lift them.
Yeah,
it should be on the players to lift the fans and give them something to do. And there was a point in the second half where Walsall finally created something meaningful, and the fans started getting behind them. But until you do it on a consistent basis, the fans aren't going to turn up in numbers, and they're not going to, you know, sing their hearts out for 90 minutes on a cold, wet Tuesday night where the football's dire.
Yeah, that's kind of absolutely it. And I can absolutely see his point, and I can absolutely see the club's point, and it's kind of playing devil's advocate a little bit. But the main issue is, like what you've been alluding to, is that we wouldn't care if I paid £20 to watch a game, which I don't because I'm a season ticket holder, but if I did, if we won, I'd happily, and it was a really good win, I'd happily probably give them another 20 quid. But if we lost and it wasn't very convincing, I'd be like, where's my money?
Yeah.
You know, it's that kind of, you're not getting what you paid for. And at the moment, we're not getting what we're paying for.
Yeah, I could understand as well. At the moment, Walsall aren't winning because it's their own doing.
Mm.
And that's what's starting to piss fans off.
Yeah.
If Walsall played a blinder yesterday, but a Crawley player went on an incredible run, beat his man, hit a worldie, sometimes you do hold your hands up and go, that was a good goal. But we're not. It's poor decision making and poor playing and lack of creativity. And then when we do create, a lack of cutting edge. It's, yeah, the team aren't doing enough for me to be, this is harsh, but to be worthy of the support they've had this season.
No, absolutely. Some of the away attendances have been absolutely fantastic. I mean, when we send 300 fans up to Carlisle and come back with a 1-0 loss,
and it could be called off because of the weather. Like, that's a huge effort.
It's not good, and yeah, we don't deserve the support we have, to be honest, because the club's just not, with the team isn't doing it.
Yeah. Right, moving back on to that team. We're going to tackle a couple of questions from Dominic Powis. I believe that's how we're saying his surname. Is Taylor overrated, or is he doing an okay job? Who's to blame for our mess, or is it team effort? And who is our most overrated player? There's a lot to unpick there.
All right, I'll take the first question there.
Yeah.
So, is Taylor overrated? In comparison to what? That's what I don't quite understand there, is because he's a good coach, but this is his first season. You've got to remember coaching professional football. So is he hyped up? Absolutely. But he was hyped up because we were winning, and he's now slated because we're losing. That's a manager's job. I think he's doing an all right job with what he's got. I think he's still learning, and we kind of have to accept that he is still learning as he goes. You know, this isn't a fully formed manager. This isn't Darryl Clark, who's won promotions, who's been in the game a while. This is a brand new manager who's never done it before. So I don't think he's overrated. I don't think he's underrated. I don't think we should talk like that. I think he's doing an all right job with what he's got. And
for me,
we just need to kind of see where it goes.
For me, the thing is, I never really felt under Clark that we looked better than what we were showing. Whereas under Taylor, we've seen the potential in the team. We've seen what we can do. And I think that's the frustrating thing. If we'd been playing poorly, but get the odd win, fair enough. But we've played well. We've had some really good matches. We've had some really good spells in matches. And, you know, we've shown fight and desire. But the last sort of 10 matches, barring one result, it's not been there after a promising unbeaten run.
I think this is all kind of to do with the fact that Taylor is a new manager. He had a rocky start. He started to ride a wave. Now it's gone the other way. It's all about how he kind of deals with this. These are the kind of issues that a manager does come across throughout a season. And I think we shouldn't put any pressure on him to say he should do this, he shouldn't do that. We've got to kind of let him figure it out and see what kind of manager he is, because he needs to develop his own ways of dealing with these issues and ways of getting over them.
I've also seen a few criticisms that he's been saying the same things post-match, but for me, it's not a cliche Darryl Clark, I'm frustrated, the boys are going to be in running, blah, 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 blah. He's repeating the same thing about tactical play and about work rate. And I think he is trying to get through to the players and they're not responding as well.
Yeah, I think there's only so many different ways he can explain what's going on the pitch and how he's feeling, because it's kind of the same issues cropping up time and time again. And he's working on it. And it feels like every time he puts out a fire, two more spring up at the moment. And he's trying to deal with particular issues and things aren't going his way. And he's not using those power phrases that Darryl Clark used. Yeah. He's saying the same things, but it's still absolutely true what he's saying. It's just he can't say anything else, because what he's saying is what's going on, is what the issues are and what he's trying to sort out.
Moving on to his next question about who's to blame for our mess, or is it a team effort? I think it's that thing that we've said about Taylor. Just he's trying to get his point across, and I do think it is going to take time, and it's going to take time and another couple of transfer windows, to be quite honest, because if you get half of your transfer business right, then you've done really well. January will be big. We'll do sort of a pre-January or even early January video, which no doubt will discuss transfers. But yeah, I think it is going to take him time. And I think we all expected it to take time. Then we went on a good unbeaten run, and then expectations raised. But who would you say is our most overrated player?
Overrated. For me, it's probably Tyrese Shade.
Ooh.
A lot of people really like him, and from what I've seen of him every time he plays, he frustrates the hell out of me. And I don't see what everybody else sees because he's not contributing to the goals and assists, barring that one free kick. What else has he really done? Because every time he gets to the final third, and I said this, I feel like I must have said this to you the first time we did one of these, or one of the second or third time. The first time I saw him play, his decision making in the final third really isn't great. And I think a lot of people, they see him because he's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's got a bit of skill. They go, "Qua, look at him, he's a real footballer." But he's not. He's there to score goals and assist, and he's not really doing either. He's just kind of doing a bit of trickery in the box. He might get a shot away. He might beat it one man, maybe two. But at the end of the day, he's paid to score goals and assists, and he's not doing that. So it's a harsh criticism. I think he's a good player, and I think he has potential. But that's why I'd say he's my most overrated player, in my opinion.
I didn't really know who to say for that, and I think you've convinced me. So yeah, I'll agree. I think you've made very good points there. Ron Pickering, who I'm assuming that's not your real name. The formation, no plan B. Team selection, same players out of position. Tactics, nothing. In-game management, zero. Alfie Bates played over 60 games in sitting midfield, yet play a defender, 10s, 8s and forwards instead. Must be personal. What are your thoughts? I'm going to break this down. Formation, we've touched on that at the moment, no, there isn't a plan B. Team selection, I don't really know, apart from Khan, who I'd change at the moment.
For me, it would be Khan and Ward would be the ones I'd swap, and maybe either put Khan left back or put White left back. And then maybe Holden you could put into that conversation because he's almost, ready to be back.
The in-game management, I'm about to contradict everything I just agreed with you on. Last night, he took Phillips off for Khan. Yeah, it was Phillips for Khan. When I heard Khan was coming on, thought it's going to be for Osadibe. When it was Khan for Phillips, I thought, okay, the idea there is that in a couple of minutes' time, Shade's going to come on for Osadibe and we're going to hit with some pace. And we didn't. And I think it's that is the in-game management, is that when we're not able to get a defences, we do have different options on the bench. Shade is a different option to Phillips. Khan's a different option to Osadibe. For me, it should have been a double substitution or a quick-fire substitution where Shade came on, because the best play that we had was putting the ball in behind. Shade is quick, and that's what we needed last night. We needed someone that we could put the ball through and would get onto it.
Yeah, and I think Taylor, and this is probably down to his inexperience as a manager, I think he shows his hand too early with what he's going to do. I think you can tell where he's going as soon as he makes that first substitution. You can tell what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
And I think if the fans can tell what he's trying to do, the opposition manager very easily is going to know, right, this is what he's trying to do. This is where he's going with this. How can I counter it? And I think he's showing his hand too early. He's making substitutions where he'll take off a winger and put on a defender. He'll put Ash Taylor in centre mid at the 70th minute or something like that. he needs to be a little bit more flexible with his substitutions and a little bit more clever and a little bit more tactical, and try and be a little bit more tricky and unpredictable.
Yeah, I
because
think
you kind of see where he's going with it.
the thing for me was, if you bring someone like Khan on, it's because you're bringing on players to unlock a defence, which Khan can do, which is why the likes of Shade needed to come on to actually be able to play that ball, to be able, like, for Khan to start dictating a bit better. But yeah, you're right. I think they're very predictable subs at the moment.
Yeah.
And I know he had one forced, like his hand forced on Labadie taking a knock, but you've got to expect that in games. But it wasn't just last night. It's quite often that you sort of predict around the 60, 70 mark what sort of subs are going to be.
Yeah, and you can you get a good idea who's coming on from the very first sub. You can kind of tell where he's going with it, and generally, you know pretty much from around the 70th minute who's going to finish the game.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good thing. We shouldn't be showing the opposition team who's going to finish the game.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, it's the same sort of players coming on. We're just every single time we just leave Miller out there for 90 minutes. He's absolutely dead on his feet. And the opposition know that Miller's going to be dead on his feet. Yeah. So they don't really bother with him too much anymore because they know that.
You see, I thought it was the right tactic yesterday, actually. So I thought when Miller came on, right, this is where we're going to start hitting them now with some pace. And it didn't happen.
See, I liked that. I like that he started to try a few different things, because I think he did become a little bit too attached to his formation and his kind of starting 11. And I think he's going to try some other things and see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
I think he needs to do more of that and be more flexible as a coach and show his wide range of coaching ability. Because he's clearly a very smart man when it comes to football. You can tell that his brain's always ticking over. He's always reading the game. So I think there's more to him than meets the eye. There's more to him than a 4-2-3-1.
Yeah.
I think he just needs to do a little bit more of that, be a little bit more clever, and try and get one over on the opposition coach.
I think in-game management as well, just sort of, not only is it substitutions, but it's style of play and what's with when. I mean, scoring in the 40th minute, the tactic should be you defend at all costs. I know it should be throughout the game, but 5 minutes to half time, just get over the line, go in 1-0 up, and we couldn't manage it. And this is the whole thing that goes back to why fans aren't turning up, because it's these little things that keep adding up. And defensively, if you defend in a lead, 5 minutes to go in half time, clear your lines. Just constantly clear your lines. Do it for 5 minutes. They should be able to do that. I'm going to stop myself going on a rant and move on. Then Alfie Bates, we've talked upon. Personally, I don't see him having a future at Walsall anymore, and I would expect him to go in January, if not the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't see a future for him either, and I don't think he really brings anything to the team that anyone else does. I mean, you bring on maybe like Mills or something in centre mid, he's going to do as good a job as Bates will, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
At this point in time, Bates isn't the same player he was, and I know he's had a lot of issues, and it's stuff that I know it's personal stuff that's been affecting him, so I won't really touch upon that. But I know he's had his problems, and he's just not the same player he was.
No, I think for me, I'll always be thankful to Bates. He's one of our own, but I think it's probably time for him to move on. Fresh start will do him good.
Yeah, and sometimes that's just what you need, just to drop down a couple of divisions and find your feet again, find where you're happy playing football, because I don't think he's happy playing football at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think when you're not happy, you're not the player you're supposed to be.
No, and also, if you're not happy, you're not going to be showing it on the pitch and in your play.
Exactly.
It's just not worth it. Right, the final question of the night. completely forgotten who it is now. Who it's asked? I do apologise. It is Vaccinated Vinyl. Again, I don't think that's your real name. Asks, is Osadibi actually that bad? Or do people just not like him? Oh, well, I mean, he did.
Question.
He did put the ball forward for Kiernan yesterday.
That is definitely a tricky question.
I'm going to put it out there. I like Osadibi. I feel that he, like all players do, need rotation in and out the side. And I think originally, if you look at Taylor's original plan for the season, it was going to be Kinsella, Labadie, Osadibi rotating in central midfield with Holden, who we all expected this. I'm talking pre-season. Holden and Earring playing as your number 10s. That was sort of the way it was going to be. Osadibi's in this number 10 role now and playing week in, week out there. I personally feel that he needs to have times where he comes in and out of the team a bit more. And I think that would get the best of him.
I'm going to say something that's probably going to upset a lot of people. And I'm going to categorise myself in this because I am included in it.
Just
Football
remember,
fans.
folks, he did grow up in Wolverhampton. Okay?
Yeah.
Just remember that. I don't know what you're going to say, but I'm ready.
Football fans are inherently fickle.
Oh, well, yeah, we
and
are.
I include myself in that because I am guilty of it.
Oh, I massively so. I am as well.
The reason Osadibi gets the hate he does, it's not because people hate him. It's because he's an infuriating footballer. Because we all know he's brilliant. We all know he can be absolutely dynamite. We saw it at Oldham away. He strung together a few performances earlier in the season. He did last season towards the end as well. We all know there's a real player in there that could carry a team towards playoffs, but he doesn't always do it. And it's not because anyone hates him personally. It's not because we think he's a bad footballer. It's because we just want him to be the player we know he can be. Yeah, there's been a lot of players in the past who have got hate because they've not been that great. I mean, Liam Roberts wasn't a particularly great goalkeeper and he got a lot of hate. He in a lot of ways, he kind of deserved it because he was particularly terrible at times. And he never had the highs that some of the other goalkeepers had. So when you kind of look towards those players, you can kind of see, yeah, I see why they're saying that's why they don't like him. Osadibi, it's like, because when he's doing well, everybody's like, we love him. He's so good. He's the best player in the league. And then he doesn't do very well. And everyone's like, no, he's terrible. Sack him. And yeah, he's a very tricky player. He's very Marmite, and I think his performances cause that.
I think as well, he has been caught not doing defensive duties at times, which doesn't help, like you said. But our last 2 goals, he scored or assisted. I can't think much further back than that, to be quite honest. But he's adding goal contributions to his game, which is good. For me, he just needs to add that level of consistency. And I do feel perhaps that because his position in the team is safe, it's not helping him. I think having someone come in for him, if Khan plays a couple of games in that number 10 role, I think it would change it because suddenly Osadibi's got a bit of a wake-up call. And I think at times he might need that.
I agree there. And I think it's a tricky one. I don't think anybody hates him. I mean, I can't speak for everyone. Some people might do. I don't know what enemies he has. But I don't think any of our fans really hate him. We really want him to do well.
What is beeping in the background? But I do apologise.
Is your house on fire?
No, if it is, it's cold outside. So
we'll finish the show before you get out, though. Yeah,
yeah, please.
We're committed. If nothing else, we're committed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a very tricky one, and I think you're right. Maybe he does need to take it a step away from the first team for a game or two, just to kind of freshen him up a little bit. But he's there with the contributions, like you say, and maybe it's because he's very central. Maybe he kind of goes missing a little bit because sometimes it is hard to pick him up with all the bodies around him. Maybe you don't quite see what he's doing with those kind of those passes, those little interchanges. And sometimes he's a little bit lax on his defensive duties. But then again, who was it? Was it Harrogate when he put in a really good tackle?
Yeah,
and it gave us a free kick, which they scored from. That was a really good bit of defensive duty, and he got punished for it. And there's not much you can do about that. I mean, that kind of bumped his confidence a lot.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those. I think he's a very Marmite player, but I think he kind of at times brings it on himself by having these kind of roller coaster performances.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting point. I thought you were going to say, bloody love him, best team. Well, that's how controversial you were going. But no, I agree. I think if a player's rubbish, they're rubbish. But I think with Osadibe, we've seen enough to know that there's a player there. And, he's the sort of player that if he did leave the club, he'd score against us when he came back.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those, he's got twinkle toes, and you can see that when he's in the box, and every time you just want him to do that one little shimmy, that one little shake, and just get a shot off and goal and score, because we know he's got it in his locker. And maybe he's been a bit unlucky, but maybe he hasn't. Maybe he's just not quite picked up the right positions. But
yeah,
it's also the team around him. Let's not act like 10 other players on the pitch have played 10 out of 10 performances and it's just him.
Yeah.
He's working with what he's got around him. So if they're not firing on all cylinders, he can't either.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I've no doubt that as and when the team improve, there will be a noticeable improvement in Osadibe. Hopefully. Right. Well, I don't even know what the date is. It's the 8th of December today, which means that this is probably the last time that we'll see each other before Christmas, which feels odd. But have a great Christmas and New Year.
Thank you very much, you.
We
too.
We look forward to talking January. January is going to be very interesting. Very interesting indeed. And I think the only way we can round this off is saying who needed to host Man City when we've got Stevenage away.
Exactly. Who's the real winner here?
Exactly.